Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Tinfoil Hat Advised. So, the big question everyone obviously wants to know the answer to right now is where the hell did COVID-19 actually start? Well, this is the seafood market in Wuhan blamed for the outbreak that was closed on the 1st of January 2020. We all know the story here that apparently someone ate a bat and then from that contracted the coronavirus. The market sells everything from snakes and birds to foxes and rabbits. The bats that are supposed to have caused the virus live 1,000 miles away and only have a similar strain of COVID to that of COVID-19. Just because they are similar does not mean the two strains of COVID are exactly the same and that it is possible to pass it to a human from the bats. So, as things stand, there is no confirmed 100% proven source of this outbreak. China, if they have one, are not admitting to knowing what it is. And, everyone else is kind of left scratching their heads with just possible plausible causes because obviously China are not letting anyone into the country and they're not going to let outside nations to do testings and research and stuff because, well, it's China. I mean, they lie at the best of times, let alone when they're potentially going to be blamed for causing a global pandemic. Yes, possibly this is just a naturally occurring thing. However, as we're about to look at right now, humans fuck up. That's what we do. Humans mess up, and there is some seriously worrying stuff that's been going on in China, right next to that wet market. And I mean right next to, you're going to see in a visual that's coming up next, how close to the wet market China put a virology lab. Of all the things, they put a virology lab next to a food market. So anyway, let's get on to this. Let's have a look at the possibility of it being a lab-leaked situation. This is where we come back to the ACE2 receptors and kind of their involvement in stuff. But basically, at the same time as all these safety concerns being raised about the protocols being followed, safety concerns and safety concerns, I guess, were raised about the very nature of the work being done in the lab. The work was focusing on the ACE2 receptor and SARS-like coronavirus's abilities to bond with it. So they were literally testing with an ACE2 receptor cell to see which coronaviruses would be able to bond. The lab had announced research showing that this was possible to have a bat-style coronavirus with an ACE2 receptor ability. This was back in 2017. In 2017, they'd found a coronavirus that could bond to the human genome. God, they had it in the lab. So, Xi's lab team admitted that their 2017 test virus was 96% similar to the current COVID-19 virus. But that does mean, as we've already said, that it's 4% different, and therefore it's not the current coronavirus. Exactly. It's not exactly the current coronavirus. However, it does show they come from the same original viral great-grandfather, if you will. So, a possibility here is that the lab, because it has bad protocols, has leaked a test virus, which has then been contracted by an intermediary animal. As we mentioned before in the nature series of stuff, that would need to happen as well. And then that has allowed this COVID-19 human strain to evolve through the progress. Now, if they created this thing 3 years ago, 3 years ago, that gives a virus plenty of time to evolve in another animal to a point where it would be at a stage with humans, it would appear different from the virus that was leaked, but it would potentially be very dangerous to humans at that point without us knowing anything about it, because the virus that was leaked potentially was maybe nothing, maybe it was one that just had a really weak bond to humans. But that doesn't mean it can't evolve. As we've already discussed, viruses evolve to their environment very quickly. So the more worrying thing about Xi's lab is that this is really confusing, she has and her team have way more viruses than just this one that they announced. Like, they have hundreds and hundreds of different types of coronaviruses in that lab that they've been testing. And just because they announced one set of results doesn't mean they announced all of their results that worked. Maybe they had some that they got to bond once or twice, but it didn't work consistently. You know, that's the way science works. They will only release results when they have a categoric and repeating result from something. So that's not to say it's the only one they've had, and it's also not to say they haven't leaked multiple different types of coronaviruses if they have bad protocols. Next to a food market. So next up, you're going to see a clip which shows you just how close the Wuhan base of the CDC is to the food market, and also how ridiculously close the virology lab is to the food market. Now, the food market is 8 miles away from the virology lab, which isn't that bad really, but it's still damn sight closer than the bats that are 1,000 miles away. And it's full of bats, and it's full of infectious diseases that are being tested for their ability to infect humans, which is really dangerous to have near a population of people, especially in a country with vast amounts of land to use where no population is. But we're going to get into that in a minute. The thing that's even more worrying is just how close the CDC base is in Wuhan to this market. It's 300 yards. 300 yards away from the market. They had a food market in existence there for generations. They decided to plonk the Wuhan base of the CDC in China next to a food market. Just insanity. But you're going to see now for yourselves. So here is the Wuhan seafood market, and you can see how close it is to the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the Wuhan Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, that image is just crazy, right? So the bats are over 1,000 miles away, but the Institute of Virology is about 8 miles away. And from the market, the Wuhan Institute of the CDC is just 300 yards away, like I just said. I mean, this is some crazy stuff. Why put a lab like that anywhere near food, let alone a population of people? Just mind-blowing. So both the labs have had safety concerns raised in recent years. One example is a video released by Chinese propaganda of their scientists doing research on coronavirus bats in the field without full protective equipment on. But scientists do say that the strains of COVID, in bats, generally speaking, are not dangerous to humans, hence the lower levels of PPE. They're not required by law to have anything more on them. However, that's for the CDC. The Institute of Virology does require a level 4 biohazard level of PPE. And now that, for those of you who don't know, is where the guys and girls have to walk around in suits, like Homer Simpson gets drawn in, like the full square helmet thing. It's a bubble blown up suit with air hose in the back. They are fully sealed in the suit. Even their air is pure air that's pumped into the suit, and the suit is almost inflated around them with oxygen from the outside, so that they have to walk through chambers to get in and get out. They have to get changed in the chamber. They get sprayed down and all sorts of stuff, right? It's supposed to be the highest level of biohazard security you can get. And concerns were raised about the fact they weren't following proper protocol nearly 2-3 years ago. So the reason that the virology lab has the biohazard 4 level of PPE is because it specifically was built by the Chinese to look at coronaviruses that might infect human beings. That was the specific nature of the building. It was purpose-built to look at that. Now, as a site, the virology center has 5 buildings. This one particular building is specifically targeted only to look at coronaviruses that might infect humans. With the current pandemic going on as it is, Shi Zhengli, who is the world's most foremost coronavirus expert, she's called the Bat Lady. She is the doctor who heads up. She is also called She, is the doctor who heads up the the research at this virology unit. Now, she is under investigation by the Five Eyes organisation, which is Canada, USA, UK, Australia and New Zealand's security agencies, all together in one agency. They are investigating her for this pandemic because even they see her as the most likely source of the outbreak. So 2 years ago, concerns were raised about the safety protocols at both of these labs, specifically by the US, by some US senators who raised it at their Congress. It was then published worldwide that they have major concerns about the protocols being used that are not used that might well cause a pathogen to leak out into the world and cause a pandemic. And that was the specific terminology used. They were concerned that a leak may occur which may cause a global pandemic. She also came out at the start of this and was raised her own concerns that maybe her lab was the cause of this. Now, obviously, since then, the Chinese government have got hold of her, and all of a sudden she's done a massive U-turn, and now she is adamant, as is the Chinese government and every other agency within China and every other scientist within China, that it could not have come from that lab. They are categorical in this statement. It didn't come from that lab. It couldn't have possibly come from that lab, even though the lead scientist came out and almost immediately and said it could have. As always with China, their reactions speak louder than their own voice. You can't listen to what they say. They like to lie. That's what the Chinese do. They're like a 6-year-old kid that's broken something. They're not going to tell you the truth about it. They're going to tell you an alien came down and broke it. So, here's the weird reactions. Immediately, before announcing to the World Health Organization about the coronavirus pandemic that they had, outbreak that they had in China, China's government instructed all of their labs to destroy all COVID-19 samples before they told the World Health Organization about the virus. Now that's just shady, and this isn't hearsay. There's leaked documents that have been leaked out of China, because if you don't know China's system, everything there is bespoke to China. So they don't have WhatsApp, for example. They have WeChat. They don't have Facebook. They have their own version. But people find ways and gaps in the satellite management systems and all that kind of stuff to leak information to the rest of the world about what's going on in China. And this is one of the things that was leaked, amongst many, was letters and emails sent to scientists telling them to destroy their data and to destroy the actual samples before they told the World Health Organization. That's just sketchy. So, they were then also super fast to blame the wet market and the bats, which is not like China, to immediately jump to telling the world, oh yeah, no, it's definitely the wet market, definitely the bats. It was definitely us. It was definitely the wet market, definitely the bats. Definitely us, definitely the wet market, definitely the bats. That's really not like China. China's normal default is, don't know what you're talking about. No idea. Didn't come from us. Somebody else. Must have been America. Now we've seen that reaction later. They've started blaming America. But that's like a month too late after you really rashly and really quickly admitted to it, which is characteristically unlike you, and also had somewhere to blame and something to blame it on. Here's the kicker. None of the original patients of COVID-19 had any relation or any ties to that food market. They did not go there, they did not shop there, they did not eat there, their family didn't work there, none of it. They didn't even live in the same area. So the food market clearly isn't the problem. And there's also anecdotal evidence to suggest none of them ate bats. So it's all just a bit confusing here. Now, where they did live, where some of them did live, was actually closer to the Virology Institute, which is even more interesting. China went on to say that they had confirmed traces of the virus in the west end of the market where the live animals are found. But in order to confirm that, they obviously would have had to done tests. You can't confirm a virus is somewhere without testing some of the animals, especially if you said you found it in some of the animals. Yet to this day, they are yet to release any data or even any information saying what animals they tested, what areas they tested, what swabs they did, what the results were, how conclusive they were, how many of them of their tests came back as positive for the coronavirus, specifically COVID-19. They haven't released anything. They've just kind of go, yeah, no, we definitely found it in the market. You got any proof of that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots. Do you want to show me? No. Nope. Fine, thanks. Okay, but I'd really like to see it. Good. Good for you. That's literally been China's reaction to this. Every time they have any request for data or proof on this, on their supposed findings of where it came from, that's their response. It's crazy. They're just making themselves look guilty. So, in conclusion to all this, it just seems very likely to have come from a lab mistake. Yes, nature fighting back against humans, as vegans would like to see it, is a lovely thought amongst all this hellishness, that it's just Mother Nature fighting back against us and all our evil ways, and it's to teach us a lesson. However, it just seems like there's too much evil, sinister stuff going on with all this for it not to probably be a lab leak. And realistically, I think China don't have a clue where it came from, but I think even they think it's a lab leak, and that's why they're being shady about it. I don't think they have any evidence to prove it's a lab leak. I don't think anyone has any evidence, solid, hard evidence to prove it's a lab leak. I think the most likely outcome is a mix of the two, lab leak and nature. I think a lab leak has happened. It's managed to get into the food chain somewhere, probably not through bats, probably just a lab leak directly. Then it's come into contact with this supposed middleman animal, and that has caused the pandemic a couple of years later to break out. That seems like the most logical explanation to me with all this. Obviously, with my wonderful conspiracy theories, I'd love it to be the vegans. It would make me laugh so much if it was the vegans who tried to claim ownership for this. I know it's a horrible pandemic, and I know I shouldn't be saying anything about it is funny, but come on now. If radicalized vegans turn around and went, we released the coronavirus to teach you all a lesson, everyone would just be like, what the fuck? China just standing there like, yeah, see, we told you it wasn't us. But realistically, that just seems like the solid option. Lab leak mixed with natural stuff has caused the pandemic. That's my personal viewpoint on everything that I've dug through. It's why it took me so long to make this video, because I dug through so much stuff, and there's a lot of nonsense out there, and a lot of bad science, and a lot of misinformation. So it's quite hard to find the facts amongst this all, because every government is trying to throw out its own piece, its own version of events. So this is the best stuff I could find. There's a really interesting video on where I've stolen some of the visuals from on the Washington Post website. That's really well done. It has a lot of scientific experts on it talking. They are very American, so it's obviously an American biased site, so I did pull from lots of other sources, but that is again quite a succinct, well put together video to watch. They come to a different conclusion to me though, so what do they know? I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video from Tinfoil Hat Advised. Please like, share and subscribe. Let me know whether you agree with me or disagree with me in the comments. Please though, I ask for one thing: if you're going to comment, please keep it in a constructive manner. Let's not be rude here. I know it's the internet and people can sit behind a keyboard and say whatever they like, but give me something I can respond to. I will more than happily talk with you and have an adult educated discussion about whether I'm right or wrong, but please keep it sophisticated. Thank you very much guys, I'll see you soon.